Walters is open for lunch Monday through Friday. Walters opens at noon for lunch, midday baseball watching, and even the occasional European soccer match. So if you find yourself around the ballpark during the day, make sure you walk on over to Walters.
Walters is the place to be tonight. You can watch both the Nats and Wizards, and on Wednesday it's loaded too. The Caps and the Nats each play. Plus, catch some of LeBron versus Steph.
Here's the set. 3-2. Runner holds. Swinging a drive to left field deep. Schwarber going back. He's at the wall. Looking up. It is gone. Goodbye. A home run the opposite way to left center field for Jason Hayward. It is his fourth home run of the year and a 2-run shot. And it's now the Cubs 3 and the Nationals nothing. Now the set of the 1-1. Swinging a line drive. Bam! Oh, diving stop. Homer in shallow right. Gets up, throws to first in time for the out. It looked like a hit off the bat into right. And Nico Hoerner to his left makes a diving stab of it. Gets to his feet and throws out Castro to end the inning.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, along with Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of MASNsports.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Another loss for the Nationals on Monday night. Where is a winning streak that we can sink our teeth into? The Nats, they giveth and the Nats taketh away. Fall to 16-21, a 7-3 loss at the Chicago Cubs on Monday night, game one of a 4-game series. Jon Lester shelled in his return to Wrigley Field. Nats did hit 2 home runs, but otherwise just 4 singles and not much more. Just 2 at-bats the entire game with runners in scoring position. And Mark, here we are again with another lackluster performance in another Nationals loss.
Yeah, this was not a real interesting game for a lot of reasons, although I suppose if you were from Chicago, you really enjoyed it because you got to shower your conquering heroes, Jon Lester and Kyle Schwarber, with love in their return to Wrigley Field and then watch your team beat them in this game. I mean, it just felt like this was just a Lester and Schwarber show, and there wasn't much else to it. And I know both said afterwards they got caught up a little bit in the emotions. I mean, they were getting standing ovation after standing ovation. It was constant throughout the entire night. I think they admitted that it did get emotional for them, and maybe early on in the game they got caught up in it a little bit, which you can understand. That was, neither one of them got to leave Chicago on really their terms. And so to come back and get to experience that, it meant a lot for them. But I also know that both of them wanted to perform better and they wanted to come out of there with a win. They didn't get that. And so it made this into a little bit of a bittersweet night for both of them as well as the Nationals.
Yeah, now with Schwarber, I think it is getting exciting what he's doing here. He's looking a lot better. His numbers have shot up. We'll get to Schwarber coming up in a bit. But Lester, in a lot of ways, is the story. And Jon Lester was not good. 5 runs in 5 and a third innings. He gave up 8 hits, 3 homers, a double, and 4 singles. Did issue no walks, did have 4 strikeouts, and he did throw strikes. He threw 53 of his 76 pitches for strikes. But it really stood out the extent to which the Cubs ambushed Lester and the extent to which Lester struggled to keep the leadoff man from reaching base. Bottom of the first gives up a run, leadoff single by Wilson Contreras on a 1-2 pitch, single by Chris Bryant on an 0-2 pitch, and then a first pitch RBI sac fly by Anthony Rizzo. Lester gives up 2 runs, bottom of the second, leadoff single by Matt Duffy, followed by the full count 2-run opposite field homer by Jason Hayward to left field. Another run, bottom of the third, first pitch, leadoff homer by Wilson Contreras to left field, and then a run in the bottom of the sixth, a 1-out opposite field solo homer by Javier Baez to right field. What would you say stood out to you watching Lester struggle as he did on Monday night?
What stood out to me was how aggressive the Cubs were against him. Like you said, some of those were on the first pitch, and he was surprised by that. He admitted that because he knows these guys, obviously, and he knows them as being a pretty patient lineup. Then again, he also thought about it and said, okay, they know I generally throw strikes, so that might have been a calculated approach by them in this game. So I think, like I said, the first 2 innings, he was still maybe swept up in a little bit. He takes the mound for the bottom of the first and gets a huge ovation. They're playing his music.
And we're going to stay right here. Jon Lester makes his way out to the mound.
He did step off the mound and tip his cap. And I mean, that's an odd position to be in as a visiting player. He wasn't going to turn it down. He wasn't going to ignore it because it meant something to him. But I can imagine, again, you're going in there and you're facing, these are your good friends, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez. Like, these are not just former teammates. These are close friends who he was with for 6 years and won a World Series with. And so I think there was a little adjustment period there, and he admitted it. He got better as the night went on, I guess. But what you see from him is that the margin for error, like we've talked about, he's got to keep it down in the zone. And when he doesn't, because he doesn't throw that hard, they can elevate the ball and hit it out of the park. And at Wrigley Field, it's not a difficult thing to do unless the wind's blowing in. And so to me, the story of this whole game was the Cubs put the ball in the air and the Nats didn't. And that's why they hit 3 home runs to the Nats 2, and that's why they won the game.
Yeah, Nats did not elevate to any real extent offensively. With Lester, you mentioned the small margin of error, and it's so true. He's not a high strikeout pitcher. I mean, we saw in that bottom of the first inning, he's got Contreras down 1-2, gives up a single, has Bryant down 0-2, gives up a single. So you hated to see that, like put away counts, unable to come through. Other thing to that with Lester is, well, the run prevention was there over his first 3 starts. He's got over 4 starts now, a whip of 141. He's putting guys on base, and so he walks that tightrope. Like even in some of these games in which the run prevention was good, he puts people on base, and it's a very dicey way to make a living as a starting pitcher. Like if you're going to keep doing that, boy, that control better be there, and especially if you're not missing bats, you're going to have games like this. I mean, he's not going to be 6 scoreless innings every time out if you're pitching to the tune of a 141 whip, and we obviously saw that on Monday night.
Yeah, we have to remember he is their number 4 starter, maybe even number 5 when it's all said and done. And that's the reason why, is that he doesn't have that ability to really dominate the way that he used to. He's just trying to give them a chance to win. They brought him in to give him innings, to pitch every 5th day, to compete, come up big in some big games. And, in the big picture, I think they have to be pleased with what they've seen from him. This was not a good one for him. And that's where he is going to get in trouble, because he will be susceptible to the long ball, especially against a lineup that knows him, in a ballpark where it's easy to hit it out. I don't want to rip on the guy too much for 1 bad start out of 4, but he didn't give him a great chance in this one. It started early. It was, unusual circumstances facing his old teammates, and it was unfortunate what happened. But on the flip side of that, and I know we're going to get to it, but I keep coming back to this, if you have a lineup that doesn't do much on its own, you can't dig him a hole like that. So again, the margin for error is really slim. So when you're Jon Lester and you're already walking a tightrope as it is, and your teammates aren't scoring for you, then that it just provides very little opportunity to make any mistakes. And so on a night when he made a few mistakes, that's all it took to lose the game.
Yeah, he was worthy, by the way, of the crowd cheering him as it did. Jon Lester, we sort of touched on this on the last installment of the podcast. A guy who got a big money contract as a free agent pitcher and delivered on that contract, was with the Cubs for 6 seasons, signed a 6-year, $155 million deal in December 2014, ultimately gave the Cubs a 3.64 ERA over 171 regular season starts. He was the MVP of that Cubs 2016 NLCS win over the Dodgers. And even with him struggling in his final 2 seasons with the Cubs, that ended up being a really good signing by Chicago. Like Max Scherzer, that is the gold standard for big money pitcher contracts working out. Lester is kind of on that next tier of, that's another big money deal, lesser than what Scherzer got, but still big money deal that really did work out. Cubs have every right to look back upon Lester's time with the team favorably.
They absolutely love him there. And we talked about this the other day. There are people in Chicago who believe that that's the best free agent signing, not just in Cubs history, but in Chicago sports history. They've had their share of pretty big names in Chicago across all those teams. So for them to bestow that kind of value to Jon Lester, that tells you what they think of him. And he's always going to be remembered, along with that whole group, as the guys who broke the curse, the ones who finally got them there after 108 years. And so he is forever going to be beloved there. I mean, they kept telling the story about how when he left and they couldn't do any kind of official farewell because it's in the middle of the pandemic last year. Well, he offered to pay for anyone who wanted to buy a beer, any Cub fan. And so many people took him up on it that it cost him $47,000.
Yeah.
And he was happy to do it because that's what they meant to him and what he means to them and everything else. So there is a love affair there. And you hope he ends up making some great memories with the Nationals, Schwarber as well. But when it's all said and done, Jon Lester is going to, for the rest of his life, be able to walk into any bar in Chicago or Boston and get a free drink, because that's what he meant to both those franchises. That's a pretty amazing legacy to have.
Yeah, I mean, he and Theo Epstein have that, right? Part of helping to be a part of 2 teams that had struggled for years in the postseason, and obviously ended up changing those legacies with what went down. Hey everyone, Al Galdi here to tell you about FanDuel. So we've all had that dream, right? Tie game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Well, on FanDuel Sportsbook, you get more than one shot to swing for the fences because FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free. That's right, new users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win, and it only gets better from there. Once you have an account, you'll have access to same-game parlay insurance all season long. That's up to $25 back in site credit each day if your same-game parlay bet falls one leg short. This way you can combine multiple baseball bets for an even bigger win. Games on Tuesday night include the Milwaukee Brewers at the Kansas City Royals at 8:10. Starting for the Brewers, Brandon Woodruff, who has a 1.64 ERA over 8 starts so far this season. The Brewers look like the way to go. There's a reason that FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. The app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlay and always-on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. And when you win, FanDuel will pay you your winnings in as little as 24 hours. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with promo code CHAT to get in on the action. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code CHAT.
21 plus and present, Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, or West Virginia. First on my real money wager, only for risk-free bet. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site. Credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-9-WITH in Indiana, 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia, Tennessee, 1-800-889-9789, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball to deep center field. Back on this one to his Happ, to the warning track, to the wall, and there it goes! Kyle Schwarber has homered in his return to Wrigley Field. A line drive home run to dead center field, his 6th of the year, and Schwarber hearing cheers as he rounds third and heads to the plate. As Schwarber makes this a one-run game, it's 4-3. Schwarber said something to Rizzo on the way around first, and you know Schwarber enjoys that, and they're going to throw that ball back. So he'll get a souvenir. His 60th career home run at Wrigley Field brings the Nats within a run.
All right, so Lester struggles. The Nats offense, though, struggles again. It was a game in which, yes, you got 2 homers, and we'll get to some of the positives in a moment, but it was another game in which the offense, for way too much of the game, just didn't do all that much. The Nationals score a run in the top of the third, 2 runs in the top of the fourth, and then that's it. Rest of the game, nothing but zeros on the scoreboard for the Nationals. Starlin Castro, speaking of former Cubs, he's in a rut right now. 0 for 4 on Monday night. He's now 0 for 18 with 2 walks over his last 4 games. Yan Gomes had a rough game, 0 for 4, also had a throwing error, and that Cubs 1-run 7th inning. Victor Robles went 0 for 3 with a strikeout as the number 9 batter. Juan Soto 1 for 4 with a single. You know, Soto all of a sudden has become Castro. Nothing but singles here. He continues to have a hard time elevating and getting balls to be extra base hits. You know, Josh Harrison went 1 for 4 with a single and a couple of strikeouts. It was just another one of these ho-hum games. Nats go 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. Just 2 at-bats the entire game with runners in scoring position.
Everything was on the ground. Everything. For the first 7 innings of this game, they only hit 4 balls in the air. They were all hits, 2 singles and 2 homers. Everything else was on the ground and wasn't out. And that's just not a way to be successful in baseball, certainly not in 2021. I suppose if you're playing at the old Busch Stadium in the 1980s on the artificial turf, you can win with ground balls, get a bug on the rug and have it roll all the way to the fence for a double or a triple. That's not baseball in 2021. That's not going to work. And this has become a team-wide problem. And I don't know why exactly that is. I mean, we've seen Soto struggle with this for a while now. You know, you do believe that he's going to get out of it, but it's not just him. It's across the board. They are not elevating balls at all, and it is costing them tremendously. They're just not giving themselves chances. And, you know, they tend to have one big inning a game, and if they get another chance late in the game, you just don't really feel like it's going to happen. I mean, they loaded the bases in the 8th. You know what they are with the bases loaded now this year? 6 for 40. And that's awful. Just absolutely awful. And now Castro, you know, it was a great play by the second baseman, Horner, but it wasn't particularly well struck. It would have been a seeing eye single if it got through. And I mean, this is just where they are right now. And it's funny because their hitting coach, Kevin Long, is the master of the launch angle. He was the guy who brought this to the Yankees and the Mets and then the Nats, and they are not launching anything right now.
So that's what I wanted to get to with you. Long is known as this launch angle guy. Daniel Murphy swore by Kevin Long. And it got a little weird this past offseason, right, where we thought Kevin Long was out, and then it turns out that he was back in. I'm not a big believer in firing coaches because I don't know that they really impact things as much as we think. Like the idea that it's Kevin Long's fault that the Nats aren't elevating this season, I have a hard time buying into that. But do you get any sense, especially with things having gotten a little weird between Long and the organization in the offseason, that his spot as the Nats hitting coach might be in jeopardy? I mean, it is true. Soto's not elevating. Josh Bella's had a hard time elevating. Nationals overall have been a very disappointing offensive team so far this year.
I think it's a fair question to ask. And I think in part because if you remember 2 years ago, I think it was like May 1st when they fired Derek Lilliquist, the pitching coach, and promoted Paul Menhart. And that caught people by surprise just because of how early in the season it was. And we know that Menhart went on to help lead the pitching staff to the World Series title. And now 2 years later, he was let go. The circumstances with Long in the winter, for those who don't really know, it was weird. But here's ultimately what happened. His contract was up. He was seeking a long-term deal. He had had a 3-year deal previously from the Nats. He had always had long-term deals because we're very well respected within the sport. The Nats said to him, we can't do that. So if you want to go look around and see what might be available, go ahead and do that. And then what happened is word got out that he was out, and it came across as though he was fired when in fact he was just looking for other jobs. He wound up not getting a multi-year offer from anybody. And so he came back to the Nats and they said, well, yeah, we'd like to have you back on a 1-year deal. And he took it. So I think the issue was more that it got out that the contract situation that made it seem like he was fired when it was really more of just a contract issue. And they did want him back, just not for multiple years. Now, sure, at some point you can always hold the hitting coach accountable. The only issue here, I don't know, they have somebody waiting in the wings. Troy Gingrich is their minor league hitting coordinator. Not somebody I've really heard of as like an up-and-comer, next big-time hitting coach. So I don't know what the alternative is, but certainly they have not performed the way that you would expect a Kevin Long lineup to perform.
But the fact that the Nats didn't want to give him a multi-year deal, I mean, that in and of itself kind of suggests they're not in love with the guy. But I guess the question would be, was that a Mike Rizzo decision or was that a Lerner's decision that the Lerners didn't want to give him a multi-year deal?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to that. What I would say is a couple things. Multi-year deals for coaches are not that common. A big-time pitching coach, a big-time hitting coach like Kevin Long, they've gotten them. I remember Mike Maddox got a 2-year deal for the Nats a few years ago. They're not super common. And yeah, you could say, hey, here's somebody who helped you win a World Series and he's obviously well-respected within the sport. Why wouldn't you give it to him? Well, coming off a pandemic year where everybody lost money and maybe they're trying to find ways to cut back. If he was that valuable, I figure somebody else would have offered him 2 years because I think he would have taken it if somebody gave it to him and nobody else did. And that's why he came back. So that's why I think it may be less about dissatisfaction on the Nationals side and more just a money issue that maybe it was an issue across the sport. It was weird. Don't get me wrong. It was weird, but I don't necessarily think that had anything to do with any dissatisfaction on their part for not believing that he was a good hitting coach.
Well, it is something to monitor. We saw the Mets recently clean house when it came to their hitting coach. And again, I think a lot of this hitting coach, pitching coach stuff can be very overrated. So I'm not trying to say that like Kevin Long is the reason for all this, but we do see teams do this all the time. Offense is struggling. What do? Fire the hitting coach. That kind of a thing. Now, there were some offensive bright spots for the Nationals in this game. We should not overlook them. Trea Turner, another terrific outing for him. Number 1 batter in the lineup, 1 for 3, solo homer and a walk, a 2-out solo shot in the top of the third to left field on a shot that nearly left Wrigley Field. That was some kind of ball that traveled off the bat of Trea. And then also he had a 1-out 5-pitch walk in the top of the 8th. Mark, Trea Turner has 10 home runs over 37 games. He is tracking towards a 40-homer season. A
40-homer season is not tracking to a 40 stolen base season. Like if I said to you, which of those two would he get to 40 most likely? You'd say stolen bases, not home runs. Well, so far he's on pace for the homers. He's still on pace for like 30 plus stolen bases. But here's the troubling part to me. I mean, it's going to go back to a subject that we've talked about many times. He's got 10 homers. He's only got 21 RBI. And when you're leading off and you're hitting solo home runs, this is what happens. They're not maximizing them. Robles didn't get on in front of him as the quote unquote second leadoff hitter in this game. Look, he's comfortable leading off. Davey clearly is most comfortable with him there, but they're not maximizing what they get from him. I don't know if there's an answer to that. It's just not going to happen. Maybe they just don't want him to hit third behind Soto. Not that Soto's getting on base a lot himself, so that's not going to make a big difference. So you just stick with him. You hope ultimately that he can do some damage with runners on base. But he is very much putting together another big-time season. He deserves to be on that list with every other great shortstop in the game, and he deserves the contract that every one of those shortstops has already gotten or will be getting And we haven't talked about it much lately, but every day that passes without the Nationals re-signing Trea Turner is another dollar added to that contract that he's ultimately going to get, whether it's from the Nationals or someone else.
So initially with the Trea Turner contract stuff, I was like, all right, this is a doable deal. It probably is something you could do for well under $200 million. As time is going on here, it's looking less and less like that's going to be the case. Like you may have to get to that $200 million threshold, if not more. Now, I don't think he's going to get $300 million, especially given his age too. He's older than like Tatis and some of these other guys. But it sure seems like that number ultimately for Trea, whether it's from the Nats or somebody else, is going to start with a 2.
The way that the market is going right now and what the other shortstops are getting and the fact, like I said, that he ranks right up with them and he's playing good defense on top of that. You know, he may not be the best defensive shortstop in the league, but he's been above average so far this year. Yeah, he's a bit of a unique player. When you add the speed to everything else that he does, there just aren't that many other players in baseball right now who have his particular skill set. And, you know, maybe the best thing the Nats will have going for them in this case is that there are so many star shortstops, and a bunch of them are going to be free agents this winter, that there's only so many teams that can afford them. So if Turner doesn't get a deal done this year, an extension, and he goes into next year as his walk year, and, you know, 5 other teams sign the big name shortstops, I don't know how many are going to be left for him. So it may depress the market in some ways in a bizarre way, but he certainly deserves to be paid as well as any of the rest of them because he is on par with all of them, if not better in some ways.
He's done a great job. This is his age 28 season, so if the Nats don't sign him before free agency, he will be going into free agency into his 30s, which will hurt the cause. But beyond that, I mean, the hitting obviously has blossomed. The defense has been so much better so far this year. Coming into games on Monday, Trea Turner led the Nats in terms of position players in WAR, per Baseball Reference, 1.9. That's more than double the WAR of any other Nats position player on the season. Like, it's not even close the extent to which Trea Turner has been the Nats' most valuable position player on the season. So another good job by Trea on Monday night. Another good job by Kyle Schwarber on Monday night. I tell you what, he seems to be settling in quite nicely to being the Nats cleanup batter. 2-run homer and a walk. A 2-run homer to center field in the top of the 4th, and then a 2-out 4-pitch walk in the top of the 8th. It was not a successful homecoming for Jon Lester. It was for Kyle Schwarber. And Kyle Schwarber now, over his last 11 games, has raised his OPS by 178 points. He's gone from having a 572 OPS to a 750 OPS. And just like that, Kyle Schwarber now, we could say, he's no longer struggling. He's in the midst of a, decent to maybe even good season. And, he's got to maintain this clearly, but he's kind of out of that rut. It's been a really nice thing to see develop here.
Yeah, it has happened. And it wasn't just one game where it all clicked. It's sort of like a slow development to get to this point. What I really like is that he's driving the ball to the opposite field in the center field. He's not just pulling. Remember those first 2 walk-off homers that were, absolute gargantuan home runs? They were both pulled. When he's going well, he is able to hit it the other way. He's talked about that. And if they're pitching him on the outside corner, he needs to be able to drive the ball to the opposite field. He needs to do what Juan Soto has done so much in his career and is not doing right now. So that to me is a very encouraging sign and reason to believe that this can be sustainable. You know who else had a nice night is Josh Bell. 2 hits, a walk. He also went to the opposite field. One of those was 111 miles an hour off the bat. He's got longer to go than Schwarber to get out of this thing. And we've been fooled by him a couple of times here, but that I thought was good. And maybe we're seeing a little bit of some signs from him to suggest it's better. Although he did not have a great at bat in the 8th inning, 2 on, 1 out, and he swung at the first pitch and popped it up to right field. That's what Bell still needs to do. Like, he's starting to produce, but not in the really big moments. And that's what they need from this team because they only get a couple of them a game. They need Bell and Schwarber and Castro to deliver in those big moments, and that's not happening.
No, it's not. Bell on Monday night, 2-out full count single, top of the 1st, leadoff single in the Nats 2-run 4th, 1-out full count walk, and the top of the 6th. What did you make of Davey batting Josh Bell 3rd on Monday night?
I've sort of given up trying to figure this one out. I think he is committed to Turner and Soto 1 and 2, and he says those are our best hitters. Trea is comfortable leading off. I want to give Soto as many at-bats as possible, and in the long run, we need Josh Bell to be a hitter for us, so I'm going to put him 3rd. He said, I asked him about it pregame, he doesn't want to keep rotating those around. He wants somebody to show they can consistently do it. I think he's just going to pick whoever he believes on that given night is the best option against that opponent. On this game, it was Bell. I don't know what the alternatives, other than letting Trea Turner hit behind him. I just don't know what else they do. But in the long run, it is going to cost him if Soto figures it out. And he hasn't figured it out yet. But if he does figure it out, he's going to get pitched around all the time. And whoever it is hitting behind him, whether it's Bell, Schwarber, Zimmerman, Castro, Turner, whoever it is, that person is going to have to be able to deliver. It has not happened. That wasn't the problem with tonight's game, but in the long run, that is going to be an issue.
If things don't work out for Josh Bell here, no one can ever say it wasn't because Davey didn't give Josh Bell opportunity. I mean, how many guys in the majors with a sub 600 OPS are batting third in 2021, and yet Josh Bell was doing that on Monday night? Now, like you said, Bell actually had a decent game, but I saw that before the game. I'm like, what is this?
But who else are you going to put there?
I don't know. Anyone not named Josh Bell? I mean, Kyle Schwarber's doing a good job. I mean, I know Castro's struggling, but he's been better this year. Gomes has had a good season offensively.
So I just want to make clear here, though. This tells you where the state of things is that you just mentioned Yan Gomes as a viable number 3 hitter.
I know.
That's where we stand right now.
But the season he's had, you could say, given the candidates, he's actually a viable candidate. Didn't have a good game on Monday night, but that's the way things have been so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but that is the ultimate indictment right there of what this lineup has become, that the names that we're throwing out there to hit third because they just don't have anyone.
Yeah, and that's why, we pick all these nits with Davey's lineups, but at the end of the day, he's at the mercy of this roster, which is flawed, as we keep coming back to, and that's a real problem.
Are you interested in buying or selling your home? Support for Nats Chat comes from Rachel Levy of Compass Real Estate. By focusing on the personal parts of the real estate process and using technology to simplify the rest, Rachel seamlessly guides her clients through their experience. Rachel uses her deep local knowledge and exceptional customer service to advocate for her clients all across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. To learn more, follow her on Instagram at RealEstateRachel.
Hey, Nats Chat listeners, Tim Shover's here to tell you about Sunday Scaries CBD gummies. Have you experienced existential dread or spent an afternoon thinking about a cringeworthy thing you did 5 or 10 years ago? We've all got our own battles, but that shouldn't mean we have to fight them alone. Luckily, CBD Sunday Scaries has you covered. It's perfect for supermoms, professionals in the grind, students, creatives, party animals, drunk texters, and everyone in between. Just go to sundayscaries.com to make your order and enter the promo code NATSCHAT. That will save you 25% off your first order. Again, go to sundayscaries.com, enter the promo code NATSCHAT, and you'll save 25% off your first order. Let me tell you, as someone who struggles with sleep my entire life, this has been the perfect antidote for that. I've slept so well this baseball season ever since I got in touch with Sunday Scaries, and I guarantee you'll feel the same way. So go to sundayscaries.com, enter the promo code NATSCHAT, and save 25% off your first order.
Before we get to the game on Tuesday night, Steven Strasburg has joined the Nationals, was with them at Wrigley Field, scheduled to throw an extended bullpen session on Tuesday. Is this the final test before activating Stras, or not necessarily?
It sure seems like it to me. If they didn't think he was ready, why would they have him join them in Chicago? Why would they have him throw a bullpen session, which, by the way, 2 days after his start, that would typically be what he would do, and then start a game 3 days later? It sure seems to me like that's what they want to do. They're not going to come out and say it yet because they want to make sure that he doesn't have any setbacks while he's out there. So it sounds to me like he is going to be starting this weekend against the Orioles. I think the only question now is, will Eric Fetty also start? We talked about this the other day. Joe Ross is already lined up to start Thursday at Wrigley. They can't really get out of that because there's nobody else who'd be available for that game. Then it's a matter of, do you just plug Strasburg into Fetty's spot on Friday? Or would you let Fetty start one of those games, Strasburg start one of them, and then you can make your decision after all that where you want to go moving forward? I think that's a possibility here. It's sort of a 6-man rotation just for this one time around and to sort of delay that decision a little bit. But based on everything we've heard about Strasburg, it sounds like he's ready to go. And I don't know there's a lot of value to having him go back to Rochester and pitching again.
Has anyone with Strasburg in Chicago checked his hotel room to see if there's mold, or are we okay with that?
I have not been on mold patrol. For those who don't remember that bizarre moment from a wild 2017 National League Division Series. But you know what? After all the craziness of that, he came out the next day and in Game 4 and pitched at that point the game of his life. And that was the day that I think he changed the narrative around him. And I know some things have happened since then that, he's still gotten hurt. But that to me was the day that he stepped up and Nationals fans understood that he wasn't this, wilting flower, that he was a big game pitcher, which he again proved in 2019.
That press conference that Dusty Baker gave when he talked about the mold is an old-timer. I will never forget that as long as I talk sports.
You don't even know what it was like in the room as we're all looking at each other trying to figure out, what is he talking about? What is going on here? that was a strange, strange day.
Yes, and then eventually you had the strange Game 5, and Dusty was no longer the Nationals manager. All right, Game 2, Nats at the Cubs Tuesday night, 7:40. Patrick Corbin versus Zach Davies. Here we go again with the Nats lineup, facing a pitcher who has not had a good season so far. Zach Davies has an ERA of 5.60 over 8 starts, so watch him throw 8 scoreless innings on Tuesday night. But Corbin's coming off a really good game. What he did in the 5-1 win over the Phillies at Nationals Park last Thursday afternoon. 1 run in 7 innings, 9 strikeouts. It would be lovely to see him come out and duplicate that here. I think if he does that or pitches close to that, we can maybe finally say, you know what? Patrick Corbin has been fixed, and the Corbin of 2019, more or less, is with us here in 2021.
Yeah, I agree. Now, let's also remember that this hasn't been a normal week for him. You know, his wife gave birth to their first child, so he's been away from them on paternity leave. And, I think all the signs are that he was able to throw a bullpen session somewhere along the way, keep himself ready to go. But who knows what kind of physical shape he's in, how much sleep he's gotten before this game. So let's see. And hey, at Wrigley Field, the margin for error is so slim. If it's a warm day and the wind is blowing out at all, like watch out. You got to be careful. So he's got to be on point with his command. All the signs have been trending in the right direction for him, though. And I think not that he has to dominate, as long as he's got a decent, solid start for them. I think we can move closer to that point to saying that he is fine and that those first couple of awful outings to begin the year are well behind him. He has looked like 2019 Patrick Corbin, and they've needed that.
No doubt. So hopefully he keeps it going on Tuesday night. Hopefully the Nats get a win. We do want to let you know Nats Chat Podcast t-shirts are on sale. They are going like hotcakes right now. It's been great to see, but there are still plenty available to you. So get yourself a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. Great looking shirts. You can order yours by going to natschatpodcast.square.site. That's natschatpodcast.square.site. Also, we're going to start something new on the Nats Chat Podcast. We want to hear from you. We want your voicemails. And you can do this with your smartphone, with your cell phone, your iPhone. Just record a voice memo, which is very easy to do. If you have an iPhone, just literally search for the app, type in voice, it'll pop up. You can record yourself saying something about the Nationals, about the podcast if you like, and you can email it to us at the Nats Chat Podcast. And we can essentially start taking phone calls on the podcast. It'll be taped, but you get the idea. So record a voice memo, talk about the Nationals or whatever you want, I guess. And you can email those to us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Remember also, if you'd like to become a sponsor of the Nats Chat Podcast, you can email Tim Shovers at that address as well, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet us too, @Nats_chat. Are you prepared, Mark? You've entered in the world of sports talk here. Are you prepared for that next level now of taking phone calls and hearing from the people about what you're talking about?
I was just thinking now, this could be dangerous. There's a lot of different directions this could go. I hope it goes well. And it'll be great to hear from people, actually, their voices instead of just their emails and tweets. But let's keep it civil here, everyone. You've got a pertinent question to ask us or comment to make, by all means, please do. But let's stay civilized here. Let's not go crazy.
This could get interesting, but it could also be wildly entertaining. We shall see. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. Thank you to everyone for the continued support of the podcast. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
A lot of my team is kind of under the weather with the change of weather and the air conditioning in the hotel and the air conditioning here. And this is the time of the year, for mold around Chicago. I think it's mold because I have it too. So it's a little inconvenient for us, because we just don't go back home. We have to change hotels now. And because all our rooms are given away and sold out because they hadn't planned on us being there. And hotels are in business, so we'll stay in another hotel tonight.